Hi everyone, Eric here. Welcome to week 3. We are talking about revising and editing. You've written a draft, you planned your draft before that, and now comes the step where you are preparing your writing to share with other people. And that is the revising and editing step. So is there a difference between revising and editing? Sometimes people use them interchangeably, and certainly an editor is someone who will help you revise. However, there is a big difference between revising and editing. So just very simply, revising involves making substantive changes to your work. So you might be adding more material, you might be deleting material, you might be adding sources, you might be reorganizing your points, you might be completely reorganizing the order of the sentences in your paragraphs. Revising involves really big changes to your writing. Editing is after you've already revised and you are making small changes to your writing, looking at stuff like grammar, format, punctuation, those kind of little things, sentence structure. That's editing. So editing is like preparing your writing for the conventions of sharing or publishing it. Revising is still creating ideas. Revising is still part of the actual construction, the actual writing of the essay. I mean, editing is part of writing the essay too, but it's what you do when you pretty much know that your writing looks how you want it to look. So I thought I would just talk a little bit about those two processes and tell you a story about some of my own writing, just to show you that I have experience with using a process like the one that I'm sharing with you. So of course, for your class and this class and all classes, you have a little bit of an artificial or unusual circumstance, which is that you will have a due date for your assignment. Generally, when I write something, I don't always have a due date. When I write book reviews, I review books, and so I often have a due date for that, and I have to plan my writing on a schedule for that. But for my own creative work, I don't always have a due date. So when I have a due date, like I'm writing a book review, and I'll link a book review that I wrote in here so that you can look at it. When I have a due date, I do follow basically the pattern that I have showed to you so far. I plan out what I'm going to do. Usually I do this on a piece of paper with a pen, just kind of write notes to myself. Then I draft it out. I free write for my drafts. I don't always outline. Sometimes I like to outline in the planning process, but generally I free write for my drafts. And then I outline to revise. So I go and I look at what I've written, and then I create an outline that says what order all the points that I wrote should go in. This is what I want to talk about a little bit is revising. And so you understand what revising is and what it's like if you're a professional writer who needs to revise. So I wrote an essay. It's called Space Mountain. It is on terrain.org. I'll put a link up. At the time of me making this video, they have not actually put the essay on the website yet, but it will be up there soon. So in like 2011, I took a walk up Push Ridge in Oro Valley. I ran into a guy. The guy had a firearm on him, and he was like an older fella, and we struck up a conversation. We were walking, and about halfway down this trail, I realized that he was having some severe mental health problems in terms of, or I thought he was having severe mental health problems in terms of understanding reality. Like at one point, he yelled at the sky that satellites were listening to us and watching us right now. And so I had this experience. He was, a nice guy, but it freaked me out because he had a gun on him while he was having these mental health challenges. And so I ended up writing an essay about my experiences where I looked up all the stuff he told me because it all sounded really far out and, for lack of a better word, crazy. But what I found was that, yeah, he had some mental health challenges that seemed to be related to some stress or PTSD, but most of the stuff that he told me was true. So it's an interesting experience that I had, and I decided to write an essay about it. And it's on terrain.org. So I started writing the actual essay maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I have 2 friends that I write with all the time. They read it for me and gave me feedback. Then I have two other friends that I write with sometimes. One of them is a journalist and my essay is nonfiction, so I gave it to him to look at, and one of them is one of the fiction editors for the publication that I was submitting to. And so I asked her to look at it too. But my piece is nonfiction, so I wasn't actually giving it to her to judge whether or not to include it in the publication. So that was at least four times that I revised my essay. So I wrote a draft, and then I revised it at least those 4 times. Then I went back and forth a whole bunch of times about whether or not I wanted to use footnotes, or endnotes, or appendices, or how I wanted to include the different types of information in the essay. So I can think of at least 3 times that I revised based on the format that I wanted and trying different formats. And then when they finally accepted it, the editor gave me a couple other points to look at and work on. So I can think of 8 definite times that I revised that essay in 3.5 years. But I know it was way more than that because I worked on it a bunch of times. Every time I'd get an idea for it or think about it after a few days, I would go back and work on it. So I know for a fact that I revised that essay more than 20 times. This is not uncommon for someone who is sharing their writing, in publications nationally, something like that. Revising when you don't have a time limit, writing something, you can revise it as many times as you want. And actually, I experiment with my writing. If I don't speculate about whether or not I think something will work in my essay, I open up Microsoft Word and I just try it out. And if I like it, I keep it. If I don't, I delete it. Typing words into a Microsoft Word document is really no big obligation. And you can do it, change it, mess with it, whatever. What I'd like you to see here is that revising is a natural step of writing. It's actually one of the most important parts of writing. It's a part of writing where you involve other people to help you. And for our purposes in the class, it's something that I'm going to repeat throughout the processes of the papers that we work on together. But don't be afraid of it. If you have a first draft and then you get it back and there's a bunch of stuff that you need to change, that's just normal. Like, I think that high school and other experiences that we have get it into our head that having changes to make on a first draft is somehow getting something wrong on the homework. I really wish people didn't come to my class with the idea that revising their work was getting something wrong on the homework. That's very frustrating. Revising is being a writer. And editing is being a writer too. So I'm just going to close here by saying I've included information about the tutors. I do ask you to consult with a tutor as part of this assignment. In the future, we will also do peer editing, but I wanted you to get some feedback from a tutor first. And so if you have any questions about the assignment, just send me an email. I hope that you find it interesting to write about something of your own choosing. And I hope that you are enjoying this opportunity to share it with me and your classmates.